I've always been a big fan of Francis Lawrence, from his early music video work. I think he's really original, and the way he shoots is it's quite riveting. And I'm a huge fan of the genres that he started out in with Constantine and I Am Legend. I love that stuff. And talking to him, really, because that's important to me, especially as I get older. It's sort of who you put your trust in as a director. Um, and the script was great. I watched the other films. Highbottom, he's a brilliant man, but he realizes he's made a terrible mistake. It's sort of like he didn't think through the consequences of it. He didn't fully understand or think about the consequences of his creation. Tom is extraordinary. I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of young. I wouldn't say young. He's not. He's in his 20s, but he's extraordinary. He has a real capacity to listen and not. Sometimes in the glare of the spotlight, there can be a tendency to primp and preen for the cameras and all that. But he's so grounded, and he listens, and he's right there for you. You can't just get anybody to fill Donald Sutherland's shoes as a young man. And he also strikingly looks a little like Donald Sutherland too. And Donald Sutherland is one of my favorite actors of all time. So, there's a big shoes to fill. Viola Davis, the legend. Yeah, wow. I just sort of, I was always nervous that I was going to forget my off-camera line because I was just watching her when she was on camera and then I would, oh right, I'm just because I was in such awe of her. She's so watchable. She's so good. She's such a power, and so nice to work with.
I've always been a huge Hunger Games fan. Catching Fire is one of my favorite movies of all time, as well as my favorite of the original trilogy when it came to the books. And so when Suzanne was coming out with a new book that had to do with the subject matter of Hunger Games, I was so excited. The Hunger Games kind of started that era of Divergent and Shadowhunters, Suzanne was the first to write this young woman who was anti-establishment, anti-government, and really standing up for what's right in a very unconventional way, without an air of sweetness or even there was nothing cordial about her either. She was very rough around the edges, and it was amazing to read that. Lucy Gray is such a compelling character, and she's kind of a breeding ground for what Katniss becomes 65 years later. The word that comes to mind is mercurial. You never know what you're going to get with her, and I think what's so amazing about this story, whether you're reading the book or when you're watching our film, is that you can never really tell whose side she's on. And the way I approached her was that she's always on her side, her own side, her family, her friends, herself. And I think that's why her relationship with Coriolanus is so interesting, is because she starts to see what it's like to put someone else's needs before your own, and she's loving with her whole heart, but when she starts to see traits in him that she may not find trustworthy, she has to put herself first and make those decisions. Suzanne had an idea of all of the songs. She had written all of the lyrics. All of those lyrics are still true to the book. She had an idea for the tempo and what she thought all of the songs would sound like. They're very folk, country, Appalachian music. It's all very much, there's a mandolin and a bass and a guitar, and a violin, and that's really how the Covey operate as a band. And we worked with Dave Cobb, who did the music for A Star Is Born, but also wrote and produced and worked with so many country artists, worked with John Prine and Dolly Parton and so many people. So we were in the best of hands. And when I got all of the scratch recordings for the music, I just fell in love and was like, we got this part right for sure, you know, because it's one thing that you're really nervous about when you're making a movie that has music in it, is all original music. Tom is such a goofy guy, which I love. I mean, that's so important because when you're doing heavy subject matter, which this is, so from time to time it gets very heavy, or even when you're just having a light day where you don't have to say anything, or the first day that Tom and I had together working on camera was the explosion in the arena, where the arena gets, you know, exploded into a billion pieces, and we were being attacked with air machines and sound machines that just made it look like it was actually exploding in our faces. And I have never laughed so hard in my life. It's like supposed to be this terrifying scene, and then the second we yelled cut, Tom and I were just having so much fun with one another. He's very, very goofy and fun, and at the same time has such a respect for an actor's process, and he has his own. Josh came in and they immediately knew what they wanted to do with the character. And that's his power as an actor. He has a knack for nuance and subtlety, and at the same time he's so in tune with those emotions that come from complex characters like Sejanus, like Gino when we did West Side Story, and he wears his heart on his sleeve as Sejanus, and that's a really beautiful thing.
The moment I picked it up after the first chapter, I was hooked, and I demolished it in like 2 days. And that was how I knew I had to do it, because Coriolanus is just such a complex character. And seeing him go from young man who is kind of troubled and fighting for his family to young man who is still troubled, but this time has kind of a goal and an aim, albeit a dark one, and he becomes kind of dark and heavy towards the end, and he becomes the kind of dictator that we know him to be in the original movies. And seeing that kind of origin story take place is something that I just couldn't not do. A big part of what we first talked about, Francis and I, was what makes Corio tick to begin with, and a lot of that was to do with his ambition for his family. And although he's an ambitious person later on, most of his ambition to kind of fight and become the kind of person who will do anything, do whatever it takes to win, is mostly stemming from his family's needs. And the film begins with his family at like the precipice of like serious hunger, and he will do whatever it takes to get them out of that place. And then that gives way to a Corio who will start to do anything for himself just to get to the top. Yeah, we talked a lot about where it began and where it ended, and how we weaved that path in between. And a big part of it was just kind of building the world and working out what this world was and what that would do to a person. Rachel is, I mean, she's so enigmatic. She just sings Lucy Gray. She is Lucy Gray. I think my first experience of Rachel was watching her sing in our chemistry read, which was over Zoom. And I sat there, and you know, Zoom doesn't really give you much emotional feedback, but I sat there and I ended up crying just watching her sing, because she has this kind of incredible life in her when she sings, which I've really not seen in many other actors before. We've become really good friends. And yeah, it's very easy to fall in love with Rachel. She's very charming. She brings a lot of kind of raw, fiery energy to what she does, which is exactly what Lucy Gray needs. So it's been a pure joy. I remember Viola and Francis describing Dr. Gall as like a Willy Wonka, kind of, you know, a chocolate factory type villain. She's someone who's like, you know, she's so interested in pain and torture and all these kind of horrible things, but she does it with delight. And so what Viola has brought to it is this kind of constant playfulness and experimenting, and the way she works, she's always trying something, and then if that doesn't work, she tries something else, and it just feels like she's got this big toolkit that she's just pulling things out of. And as an actor playing with her, you're just kind of like dodging what she throws and then throwing things back, and vice versa, and it just feels so rich at all times. And she's great. She's great. I don't think she knows it, but she's kind of a genius. She is so fresh every time. Every take is just kind of like raw, like interior energy just kind of bubbling out. And so you'll be sat opposite her in a scene, and she'll just like, you know, it's so natural at all times, and so light and buoyant, and it's beautiful. It's been very easy to kind of play cousins and people who know each other intimately, because she's just like an open book, and she's a beautiful actor. She plays Tigress with this kind of this lightness and this savviness at the same time, which shouldn't really work, but it does. I think audiences will be very grateful to get a glimpse into the kind of origin of what made the Hunger Games what they are. I know watching the original movies, always felt like, how did they end up here? I think if there's anything audiences want, it's entertainment and meaning at the same time, and this has all of that.
I think that she's conservative. I think she's a loyalist, loyal to the capital and everything that it represents. And she doesn't really want anything changed. And she wants her grandson, Tom, played by Tom, wonderfully played by him, I might add, to triumph in the games, because she knows that that way he'll survive, and they will survive as a family. And in fact, we just did a scene where the whole house has been reclaimed from the poverty they were living in back to its former grandeur. And so she doesn't want them to take the furniture away, naturally. And so she's very much on the side of the capital and has no time at all for the people the have-nots who live in poverty and starvation. It's set, the beginning of the story is set in a time when they have very little, and it's all been taken away from them. And so probably growing roses is reduced from having a rose garden down to like a flower pot with a rose bush in it. And so, yes, it's very precious to her. And when she gives him the rose, it symbolizes everything that they used to be and that they can be again, she hopes. We went through a lot of trials of turbans. You know, she's a turban woman. And but we tried turbans, and then we tried hats, and then this was the final pièce de résistance, I should say. And it's perfect for her, you know, and it's perfect for the outfit. And I think it balances the outfit in a way that gives me enough, enough strangeness, and you don't quite know whether you should take her seriously. But when she stands up and sings the anthem with her hand on her heart, you know where her loyalties lie. The people who designed and made the outfits, and they made 2 outfits for me, there's a woman locally who did all the embroidery, hand embroidered these flowers onto the outfit, and just a fabulous team of designers.
I think Tigress is extremely creative and resourceful. I think she's probably one of those people who knew from a very young age like what she was good at and like what she was able to offer to the world. And unfortunately, due to like the Snow family's circumstances, I think she had to get really creative with how she lived like her creative life, and which I think is like making clothes. I think like in her heart she's a fashion designer, you know, and that's like her big love next to her family. I think she's super family oriented as well. They're cousins and like bloodline and whatever. They're cousins, but certainly based off of what we know they've been through together and how they've had to support each other through the years and the hardships that their family has faced, and just also watching having to witness some really horrific stuff. I think that creates a kind of bond that's unique and maybe even goes beyond like siblings. I even feel like some parental like dynamics between them, like where she feels matronly sometimes, and then he has this like overwhelming pressure to provide, like some stereotypical father figure might. So it's like a lot of dynamics on top of each other, I think. You can tell Trish loves her job so much just because like she'll be talking about all the different processes she went through, like sourcing jewelry or buttons or like every minute detail of every costume she's put so much thought into, as far as like how it relates to the character and how it contributes to the story. And like she's genuinely just so excited about it every time she's talking about it. It's really inspiring to watch her work. It's definitely one of the biggest projects I've done so far, and so there was certainly like this level of like I being slightly intimidated at like coming into this huge thing that's already been a franchise for a long time, and with like really amazing established actors, and yeah, I was definitely a little nervous, but that like quickly kind of melted away, like as soon as I started working and coming to set and getting to hang out with everybody a little, and it all of a sudden became very human once again, which I think is what like the vibe is here at its core.
Lucy Gray Baird, who is our co-lead, played by Rachel Zegler, in the film, is a very different kind of character. She's from District 12, but she's almost the sort of anti-Katniss, right? She's quite charismatic. She's a performer. She's mercurial. I think she has quite a lot of life experience, and quite a lot of life experience in a way that Katniss hasn't really. And she's kind of mysterious, whereas Katniss was always kind of internal and quiet. She wasn't really a mystery, where Lucy Gray definitely is a mystery. You know, it's interesting. We had a pretty exhaustive casting process for the three main roles, for the Snow, Sejanus, and Lucy Gray role. And with Snow, we saw a lot of people, and there were a few people that were like pretty interesting, but he kind of came in late to the game, at least to me, his self-tape, and he just kind of knocked it out of the park. There was a quality about him, there was a nuance to his performance. I mean, a real sense of understanding the character. I could also see, even though he had dark hair at the time, that he bore resemblance to Donald Sutherland a little bit. But there was also just a sense of control in his performance that I really liked. And you could tell that this guy, based on the scenes he was doing, that he had real craft and he really knew what he was gonna do, and he was gonna be really prepared. And was gonna be able to really convey the complete sort of emotional arc of this kid, who's, you know, desperately like putting on a show with the charisma to sort of fit into society, but desperate to feed his family, and like slowly becoming the monster that is Snow. I think it just became clear really quickly with him that he was going to be able to tackle that, and tackle it in a really fantastic way. I love Viola Davis. I love her work. I think she's one of the best actors, you know, living now, if not one of the best actors of all time. And so I really, really admire her. And there's a project that I've been developing that she's a part of, that we're still trying to figure out. So I had, you know, somewhat of a relationship with her, a bit of one from working on that. And as soon as I thought of, Dr. Gall, I thought Viola would be perfect. And, the only stipulation about the casting of Viola kind of came from Suzanne, which was just that Suzanne had always imagined Gall being much older than Viola is. So we aged her with the makeup and wigs and things like that, aged her up a little bit. And part of it is that she's a little quirky, and she's like, she says kind of weird things, she has her little rhymes, she's like, can be a little giggly sometimes, but she can also be quite scary. And I remember being a little nervous pitching to her this, but it was the idea that for me, the reference was Willy Wonka. And the original Gene Wilder Willy Wonka, which is there's a sort of a sinister quality that's kind of underneath, but really it's a person who finds joy in the creative ways she's coming up with things. So even if they're horrible things for sort of torture or death or punishment, it's the creative side of it that like keeps her, that she finds fun and enjoyable. And if we can sort of keep that feeling alive, I think will make a character that's really unique. What's really fun is sometimes when you're developing these stories and you're working on scripts and you have these scenes specifically early in the movie where somebody's giving a big speech, you debate often about how much exposition you want to sort of spoon feed the audience, and some you need, but it's always really tricky, right? But then you get Peter Dinklage coming in and handling that dialogue, and it just becomes delicious, and he sort of burns through it, and you kind of forget that it's just exposition, and he's just a master at it, and also right out of the gate. So for me as a filmmaker, when you're sort of working against time and you've got a lot to do and a lot of coverage needed, but you have 3 pages of dialogue of some speech or something, to have somebody who can kind of come out of the gate, really know all the dialogue, but also have the performance down. One of the fun things about the book that I sort of felt immediately was that, there was an opportunity to sort of show how the Capitol works and how the games worked at a very early age. And one of the things, or at a very early state. And one of the things that was very clear is that the games are in a very sort of early rudimentary state. And that there's an arena, there's a wall, there's weapons in the middle, they go in, and in my guess is like the games rarely lasted more than like an hour or 2, and it was done. And this is the first time that landscape changes, right? Because bombs go off and kind of open up the arena a little bit, and that changes and makes the games go longer and starts to give people the idea of sort of creating landscapes and things. When we started shooting some of the sequences and some of the deaths in the games, I suddenly felt that it does feel like the Hunger Games, which is good, but it feels very different. The characters within the games feel very different. The fact that they're not wearing uniforms feels very different and makes everybody more sort of individualistic and specific.
I found out that they were interested in me to play this part of Lucky Flickerman, and explained it as, kind of an ancestor to the Stanley Tucci character. It all kind of came at once, and of course I was excited because I love the first movies, and very much, and specifically loved that Stanley Tucci character in those ones, and I remember just thinking, God, what a great, truly just saying, what a great part, how much fun, so perfect for him, because I'm a big Stanley Tucci fan. This is the 10th Hunger Games coming up in our film, and the previous 9 have not really gotten much attention or viewership, and there's an attempt to find ways from the Capitol to find ways of making more people tune in, more people watch. They're taking suggestions from, there's mentors. They propose the idea of mentors. They are accepting ideas from mentors. They use some of Coriolanus Snow's ideas and implant them into the game. And part of one of the other new things about these Hunger Games is that they have a host for the first time. And so I'm the first host of the Hunger Games. And I'm a weatherman and an amateur magician and probably do all kinds of stuff. But I've been tapped to do this hosting and gig. And I think it's a really great role because it's like the games obviously work because they go on to, we've seen they've gone on till the 74th and 75th Hunger Games. I don't know how you could make a movie like this if there wasn't someone, if there was no Rachel, you know, because you basically like this character is just, you know, when you read it in the book as well, it's just how do you're reading about someone who's an incredible singer. So you're imagining everyone's version of that is different. But whatever it is, it's got to be like everyone stops and is just totally mesmerized. That's very rare for someone to be able to do that. And she really does do that. She really is an amazing singer and actor and presence. And she does immediately, it's startling. And so it's really been like a pleasure to watch. And everybody talks about her, how great she is. It's like, Rachel's amazing. Trish Somerville, the costume designer, emailed me photographs of my face, sort of like these kind of drawing photographs of what they were thinking for Lucky. And so that's the first time that I really saw what they were sort of imagining and thinking, and it was so helpful because it's just like, you know, I think it's just like it's like directions, you know, and in the beginning, after I had no idea anything, I couldn't picture anything. I had no visual reference because Francis was saying it's going to be different than the other films and it's a different look and it's, you know, it takes place many years before. So I kind of was, I didn't like, I had imagined, I guess, things or what I might look, but when I saw the outfits and hair, it just was like, it just helped. It was one more step in like removing excess, just focusing on who this was and what the world was. Certainly don't feel like Lucky unless I'm in these clothes. And, you know, I feel like they're so grand and so yeah, the look and the hair, it was all sort of one thing, one package. That was my sort of first like kind of like real invitation to the world of it visually.
How tantalizing to see all your shining young faces on this auspicious day. I am Dr. Volumnia Gall, your humble head game maker in charge of the War Department and all its affiliated concerns. I've broken free of my laboratory today to examine you, the leaders of the next generation. I won't be around forever after all. And now to that end, I am honored to introduce to you the creator of the Hunger Games themselves, Dean Casca Highbottom.
Select students, faculty, and of course, Dr. Gall. I have summoned you all here today for the 10th annual reaping ceremony, in which we choose 2 children from each district to throw into the capital arena to fight to the death in the Hunger Games.
Lucy Gray Baird.
Sing your way out of this one, Lucy Gray. What is that dress?
She's some sort of clown?
Lucy Gray, I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm sorry.
That girl's not gonna win these games. You saw her, she's underfed, unstable.
The dean said it's not just about winning.
Everything is about winning. If not the games now, then the crowd. Lucy Gray won't survive a minute inside that arena. So that means we have to make every second before then count. I'll get her to sing again.
I wouldn't sing a note for you if I was her. I wouldn't do anything at all, unless I could trust you.
She's district, Tigers. She knows we hate her and she wants us dead. How am I supposed to get her to trust me?
Imagine it was your name that they pulled and you had been ripped from your home. I just want to know that somebody still cared about me out here. Don't discount her just because she's district, Corio. You might have more in common with her than you think.
Well, I'll wrap around first, and I'll say Dill, she looks, and I'll come back.
Come around,
And
yeah.
I'll say Reaper.
Reaper.
And then at that point,
Then you duck away from Reaper.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I back up again.
and then she crosses
And then
me.
and then I keep going back until the goal.
Yeah.
Enjoy the show.
Strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met up at midnight in the hanging tree. Are you coming to the tree where the dead man called out for his love to flee? Oh, strange things did happen here. No stranger would it be if we met up at midnight. Sorry, I still got one foot in the arena.
Okay. Yeah, I can still tell. I can't stop loving you.
One of them. But you should try singing.
I don't sing when I'm told to. I sing when I have something to say. Besides, I've seen your arena. There's nowhere to hide, so what's the point? The guards say you get more money if you get more people to watch, so. That for us? Jessup.
I'm not hungry.
You think I can't hear your stomach growling, Jessup Diggs?
I'm Lucretius Lucky Flickerman, a man who needs no introduction. You'll know me as your favorite weatherman and amateur magician.
So, yeah. Yeah. See you, if not before Monday, then every week. Yeah, all right.
Sejanus, you made it to the reaping for once.
And you made it to graduation. Faustus, we're both shocked.
Spill it. Who won the prize?
I know, I wouldn't want to ruin my father's big day. No one here actually likes him, but they do love his money. You know what that's like, don't you, Arachne?
Funny.
I am Dr. Volumnia Gall, your humble head game maker in charge of the War Department and all its affiliated concerns. I've broken free of my laboratory today to examine you, the leaders of the next generation in person.
12, District 12. Boy, Liz is shot of Vickers. And oh. You'll be happy about this, Miss Crane. The District 12 runt girl. She belongs to Coriolanus Snow.
Before we ask ourselves what the Hunger Games were for, shouldn't we be asking whether or not they're right in the first place?
You have a problem with my game?
Some of those children were 2 when the war ended. The oldest are 8. The Capitol is supposed to be everybody's government. It's supposed to protect all of us. And I don't see how making people's children fight to the death protects anyone.
That sort of sympathy can interfere with your mentoring.
Action.
Mr. Snow, I thought I told you to make better friends.
What happened? Is it Lucy Gray?
Unless you can put a leash on your deluded classmate, she might as well be dead as far as...
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Sit down, Fetus. Come on. Let's go. Everyone, we're going live. Sit down, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, in a few moments, we're going to go live, which means you might be on camera, okay?
Enlighten me, Mr. Snow. What are your plans after these games?
I hope to go on to the university, sir. Naturally. Get a job in the government.
And if you fail to win the Plinth Prize, what then?
We pay the tuition, of course.
Look at you. In your makeshift shirt and your too tight shoes, trying desperately to fit in. When I know the Snows don't have a pot to piss in.
Everyone. Hi, everyone look here. Get a good spot there, Dimitri. Come on, don't hide. Oh, hey. You can do whatever you want in this picture. You don't have to.
Howdy ho.
Howdy ho, howdy ho. There you go.
Starting again. This is how it begins.
It's just one crazy tribute, Grandma.
One is all it takes.
It's my fault.
She will try to use you. You must use her, or you'll end up dead in the trees like your father.
What a twist.
Oh my God, Katie, I'm so sorry. No!